Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Beyond Abortion. I am always blessed to have the best guests, not just from the Kansas City region, but really across the nation. And for me, that's one of the coolest parts of what I've been allowed to do in nearly 20 years in the pro-life and conservative movement is get to know incredible people who are doing incredible things. And today, it is one of those guests. I am honored to invite my friend and colleague for life, Heather Weininger from Wisconsin Right to Life. Heather, thank you for joining me.
Oh, Melissa, thanks so much for having me.
I mean, we've known each other seemingly forever, which is crazy because we're both so young.
Absolutely. I don't have birthdays anymore, so right? I don't know about you.
Understood. I had to do some math the other day about my age and whatever. That math is terrible. I'll focus on my kids' birthdays. I don't know about you.
Exactly. That's what I focus on too.
Well, and I mean, that's part of who you are. You are a boss for life in every good way. I mean that as a term of endearment. You have a very particular style of leading in the conservative sphere, politically and legislatively, and also with your team. But you're also just a normal human being like me. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're a great friend. And so I'm honored that you are even taking time in the midst of your busy schedule to have this conversation. So thank you.
Well, Melissa, what you do is so important in the work that we do day to day. So it's an honor and privilege to work with you and know you as a friend.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think I want to start there because your story is not my story. My story is not your story. But we do this dance together in the pro-life movement of working together really well. And I just would love to hear about what brought you into the pro-life movement and into Wisconsin Right to Life. I mean, some people have personal stories. Some people have professional experiences that lead them there. And sometimes it's a mix of both. So what's your story?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a mix of both. I grew up in a household where we knew life was always valued. My parents were busy working, so I wasn't really involved, as an activist in grassroots or anything. But the personal side of this is when I came home between my freshman and sophomore year in college, I was working at a department store, and someone that I worked with actually at the time had an unplanned pregnancy. And the reality is I had no idea how to talk to her about this. I had no idea what resources there were. And mind you, because of my age, the internet wasn't something you turned to, and you didn't have these smartphones where you could just look up information and Google everything. And I remember having a conversation with my mom of, Mom, what do I do? And my mom also didn't know what those resources were. And I will tell you, this moment has stuck with me throughout my life of I didn't know how to handle this situation. So day to day, that's really important to me. But the real part of how I got involved with Wisconsin Right to Life was back in my early career. I worked for a congressman, my hometown congressman, out in Washington, D.C., and anytime you could get an issue, you were really excited about it. But no one in our office really wanted to work on women's issues. And it just so happened that when I was out there, I was like, absolutely, I want to do this. But I really had no idea what that meant. My boss was on the Judiciary Committee. It was during the time of partial birth abortion discussion. I was someone who had no idea what this meant. I remember going to the committee hearing. I remember the doctor talking, very much in detail of what a partial birth abortion procedure was. And I remember leaving that hearing, going back to our office thinking, wait a minute, we live in America. Is this real? Is this really happening? And during that time, I worked really closely with Wisconsin Right to Life. My boss had come from the Wisconsin legislature, so he also knew Wisconsin Right to Life very well. And they were instrumental in helping us navigate what this issue was, along with National Right to Life, but I really worked closely with them. And my time passed with the congressman. I moved back to Wisconsin to get married to the guy who also worked for the same congressman. And my career really just took a different turn. I was very involved in politics. I continued to work on campaigns. I fundraised for candidates. My husband himself was in our state legislature. So really my life just looked different than what I ever thought. But I look back and I realize all these pieces of my work life actually led me right to Wisconsin Right to Life and gave me that ground that I needed in order to get where I am today. And I happened to read their newsletter one day, and their legislative director was retiring, who I knew many, many years. And I thought, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and see if they would hire me. Thinking, no one's going to hire me. My husband's in the state legislature. I live in Green Bay. This job is in Milwaukee and Madison. And lo and behold, I was blessed and I got the job. But shortly after I started, I remember Barbara Lyons coming to me, who was the executive director at the time, and said, I'm retiring. And I thought, well, gosh, my career here at Wisconsin Right to Life was certainly short-lived. And I guess I'll be moving on to the next thing. But, I was really blessed by her mentorship and her encouragement to reach out and apply for executive director. And I've been here for 11 years now as the executive director. I know. Can you believe it? I've never stayed anywhere that long. That's how much I love this. It's not like I get up and go to work every day. This is a passion that I have, and it's something, God puts you in the right place at the right time for that moment. And certainly that's my life today.
And for those from Wisconsin or, from National Right to Life affiliates who know Wisconsin Right to Life well, obviously we know Barbara's reputation precedes her, right? She's an incredible example for people to follow. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again here today. No one else could have filled those shoes except for you, Heather.
Well, that is so kind. But the reality is, again, God gives us so much goodness and we use it for what we should be using it for. And that's really how I feel in so many ways. I had the right tools in my tool belt to be able to do this. And again, this cause, there is nothing greater than this cause that we should be working on today.
Well, and I think that's what I want listeners. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. First of all, I want to talk about things that are happening in Wisconsin because it's a lot. And I want to talk about Wisconsin Right to Life because you guys do some things that I don't ever see anybody else do. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from that. But I also love that you are an example to everyday listeners who are going, yeah, you know what? I don't have a personal story of surviving an abortion. I don't know where I fit in this, but I feel like maybe I'm called and I don't know how to get involved or how God's going to use me. You've lived it. You're still living it. And you're a smart woman, but yet like me, right? We're watching it happen. We're like, thanks for the opportunity, but I guess I'm probably moving on because you aren't going to have an executive director. And we're not thinking, hey, it's you, right? You were brought to this place. So, I want people to take that as an encouragement of you can be a Heather.
Anyone can. We just have to listen, right? Listen for what that calling is. And I never imagined this is where I'd be in life, but 11 years later, I'm still here and I don't want to leave. I hope someday we don't have to have these conversations anymore, but I'll be here as long as we have to keep having them.
Mm-hmm. For folks who aren't familiar with Wisconsin Right to Life, what's the mission and what are some of those, key programs that you guys engage in?
Yeah, so we've been around since 1968. Yes, that's before the horrible decision of Roe, but people here in our state saw what was coming. And our mission statement has always been to make sure that infanticide, abortion, euthanasia, all of those are not options for people. Make sure that they know what the alternatives are. Make sure they have this education about what these issues are. What does it mean to have an early abortion? What does it mean to know that there's something else out there? So our programs really focus on education. And I know sometimes we kind of get boxed into this whole idea that we just work on legislation, but the reality is that's just a minute part of what we do at Wisconsin Right to Life. So the education side of us has many facets to it. I get most excited about our teen programs that we have. We have a teen camp coming up in July. It's a week long, and you know, Melissa, very well about our teen camp here, but it's a week-long program where teens come and they learn how to speak on it, on life issues, and again, from the moment of conception until natural death is what we continue to work on. Unfortunately, these days, really the impact is on abortion and the most discussion is taking place. But we also have teen impact boxes that we send out. They really came out of COVID. We weren't able to meet, we weren't able to connect with our teens, and we wanted to stay in touch with them. So we put together information. I think this latest one that we just sent out includes a book.
It's on my counter.
And we're going to have... Oh, perfect.
I haven't
All right.
opened it. Lives in Guatemala. I'm saving it for her.
Perfect. And we're going to have a little book discussion on that. But we want to give teens tools. I always look back, as I stated earlier, I had this person I knew and I didn't have any tools to offer them of like, how do I talk them into keeping their baby? How do I tell them about adoption? How do I tell them all these things? I was clueless. We want teens to have that information. We need them to have the information to talk to their friends and offer them alternatives. The other thing that I get really excited about too, we host webinars. We know our people are all across the state. We want people from across the country to join our webinars. We have them on all sorts of issues. We've had them on personhood. We have had some doctors talk about different types of abortions, chemical abortions. We're doing some brain death conversations as the year kind of continues on here. But one program that I think we do uniquely different than other states, and you've joined us in so many times helping us raise money for this program, is our Veritas Society. What we know is people use their phones for everything. That's where you look for whatever information you might want. And we need to be where our target audience is. So we need to be on phones and we need to have advertisements directing women, young girls, to a different alternative to abortion. I always say this, I feel like our pregnancy centers and the work we do with them is kind of like the best kept secret that shouldn't be a secret anymore. When you don't know what's available to you as an alternative, you're going to take whatever the option is right in front of you. So if you keep getting hounded on your social media, on the websites you're going to, and the advertisements, and all you see is Planned Parenthood information or your local abortion facility, that's what you think is your option. So we use technology, and this is key. You always have to be on top of whatever the latest technology is. So we're able to capture IP addresses from the women who go to universities in Wisconsin, so public and private, and then we've dropped it down to high school age girls now too. So we go all the way down to 14-year-olds. I personally would like to get to 12-year-olds, but that's a little bit harder. I have 2 teenagers now myself, and I see what happens on their phones, and it's really disturbing, the types of ads that they're getting. So we're able to send them messages, take that IP address. We don't know who's on the backside of the phone. We don't want to know who's on the backside of the phone and their personal information, but we want them to see these advertisements that lead them to the pregnancy help centers where ultimately they can get a really, really different kind of plan put in place for them in an unplanned pregnancy than they would find at an abortion facility.
Yeah, you know how excited I am. I mean, you guys have always done a great job of using ad campaigns, right, to reach and to educate and to connect women in need to pregnancy centers and other organizations that can help them. But your creative response to what is happening in the world is one of the most powerful things that can happen. I mean, when people are thinking, man, how do I make a difference? I can't be the executive director of Wisconsin Right to Life. No, but you can study and know, right, what is happening in your community, how the abortion industry and their lobby is pinging our kids all day, every day, and then helping other organizations follow in the footsteps of Wisconsin Right to Life or support Wisconsin Right to Life and the Veritas Society so that more women can be reached with services and supports, not more abortion.
Exactly. And again, if you don't know about it, though, where are you going to go? So, I mean, we work with other states. We work with pregnancy centers. We know that most of them don't have that large of a budget. So if we can kind of cover the overhead and not upcharge them when they're doing an ad buy, that saves more money for them to get to their targeted audience. And ultimately, that audience, continues to change over time, the age, how people are obtaining their information. I always want to be on top of technology. So I think important discussions moving forward to what does AI look like in this world as we move forward too. So those are all really, really exciting things that we can do. But again, we always have to be where our target audience is and play the game, if not better than how the abortion facilities are playing it.
Absolutely. I mean, right. In many ways, we have the deck stacked against us in the pro-life movement, but you and I are of the same mind, which is it's not an excuse, right? Like, we can't just say, oh, ho hum, right? We always get outspent or, no, it just means that we get more creative. We are called to work smarter, not harder, right? We are called to work collaboratively. We are called to be effective, maximize, leverage, whatever it is.
Right. I mean, and that's what's really awesome about the Veritas Society and how we kind of transform over time. TV ads are super, super expensive. And that's what I learned as I came on. And I also came from a political world, understanding that you don't reach your target audience just on television anymore. You have to be in the digital world. And we can do so much more advertising. We can be with them all year long. It's not just during a season. We used to only be able to do ad buys in the spring or in the fall. Now we're on all year long.
And what does some of those numbers look like off the top of your head? I mean, I've heard some of those numbers for you before about what the impact of the Veritas Society has been.
Yeah, I mean, we're serving millions of ads. And prior to Dobbs, we could actually follow a woman if she went to Planned Parenthood, then she went to a pregnancy help center. We could see how many unique visits would go into centers. I think in 1 year we had about 17,000 women who saw our ads and went to a pregnancy help center. And then we could see how many went for follow-up visits too. So if they go multiple times, that most likely means they've decided to choose life for their child. So that's huge in the impact. Now, Dobbs, it's a little bit harder for us to get those firm numbers like that, but when you're talking about hitting all the colleges, universities, high schools, both public and private in the state of Wisconsin, we're hitting millions of impressions every single year to these people. And then the greatest thing about this, not everybody goes to college or not everybody might be at that high school where we're capturing them. If someone is behaving similar to the person on the phone that was at that school, we can target them too with the ad without them actually being physically there. So the audience grows, the message gets out there, and we're making an impact on the lives of all these people here in our state.
Yeah, I'm so glad you touched on those two pieces. Those were the ones that I had, off the top of my head as well. We always loved the teen program. I mean, listen, back in the day when I wasn't involved in everything that I am, I've scrubbed tables at that camp with now Secretary of Transportation Duffy. I mean, shoot, come on, folks. If you're wondering how to make a difference and meet some great people, you could volunteer at something like that.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's how it all begins, right? That's how we get to know each other in this movement too, and how we make the biggest impact that we can. Actually, Rachel Duffy was just at our Education Fund dinner and reflecting back on how Evita, their daughter, came to camp and all the tools she learned that she still uses today in those discussions, and not just on life, but so many other things that she encounters in her daily life.
That's right. I mean, back then I was even fangirling over Evita, and that was a long time ago. Yeah, key takeaways. Oh, man. I love that you guys do everything that you do at Wisconsin Right to Life. And you're so right. I mean, the legislative piece is just this small portion, right? The education and the outreach and equipping grassroots people to get involved and make a difference is just a huge part of the DNA of who you are. But as we kind of pivot to closure today, let's talk about Wisconsin. Y'all are real special.
Sometimes I feel like I'm watching a tennis game and it's the ball going back and forth and seeing what it looks like. So, Melissa, you and I were in the same location that day that the Dobbs decision came down. And I remember just crying, knowing that we had this law on the books since 1849 here in the state of Wisconsin, and it was going to go into effect because of this decision. But at the same time, I knew that we had a governor and we had an attorney general who do not believe whatsoever in the value of life here in our state. So, knowing that this decision was coming up, they had already put into works the challenges that they were going to put into place on our law. So that day, the Dobbs decision day, our abortion facilities in the state of Wisconsin closed. We had 4 of them at the time. But like 2 days after that decision, our attorney general brought a lawsuit against our 1849 law that had been in place all those years that prohibits abortion in our state of Wisconsin. So for several months they were closed, but as all kind of anti-life people do, they're really good at shopping around and knowing where to challenge these laws in the court system. And they found the friendly court in our Dane County, which also happens to be the home of our state capital. It's very liberal in that county. And as the case was heard, it was challenged. They said, nope, this is not an abortion law. This is a feticide law. It only applies to that. And in that time, even before the decision was brought out, the abortion facilities started opening again. And part of it was because the district attorneys in the counties where we had the abortion facilities, they were the ones that would have had to bring challenges to it. And 2 of them said, well, you know what, I'm just not going to pay attention to what the law is anyway. So if you open, who really cares? Because I'm not going to prosecute you. There was, however, one district attorney in Sheboygan County who thought otherwise. He said, no, I would apply the law as written. Unfortunately, the Dane County Circuit Court judge did decide, no, this is a feticide law. It does not apply to abortion. It went then, instead of going through the appeals process, it went straight to our Wisconsin State Supreme Court, where we have a very activist court here in Wisconsin right now. We no longer have a conservative majority. They have taken over. They heard oral arguments on whether or not our abortion law could be enforced. And Melissa, our court session is done June 30th, so it's like I'm expecting that decision at any day now, saying, no, you're right, it's feticide. And I'm sure that's what it's going to look like. Now, the real troubling part of this, outside of that, was our Attorney General brought forth another case straight up to the Supreme Court seeking a right to abortion in our state constitution. Now, in the lower court, that was never argued. So it's somewhat confusing to all of us of how can you bring up a challenge to something that was never argued in the lower court. But again, it's all about activism here in our judicial system. It's no longer about, well, this is the rule of law. Let's just apply the rule of law. That's just not how we operate anymore. And our governor, certainly is not someone, we worked on the abortion survivors law here in Wisconsin, and our governor, doesn't really think people like you exist. even though you were standing right there.
Yeah, I was willing to go meet with him. I think we might have sent him a letter if my memory serves me correctly, but huh.
Yeah, so we're not in a friendly environment here whatsoever when it comes to life. We just had a new abortion facility open in Milwaukee, our largest county here in Wisconsin. Also, the poorest communities here in Wisconsin. We
Never a
have abortion
coincidence.
up, right. We have abortion up until 21 weeks here in Wisconsin. That's because we passed during the Roe era the pain capable bill that brought us down to that level, not just viability at that time. But this particular individual who opened this clinic, it's not part of Planned Parenthood. It's an independent facility right now. They're starting at 11 weeks. Then they're going to ramp it up to 14, and they can't get to 21 weeks soon enough for them. So there are people also in place looking to make money off of these women, off of these families, instead of really providing them true hope and alternatives here in our state of Wisconsin. So we're very worried. Not only is our court system activists, we're very slim majority in our state senate, in our assembly here in Wisconsin, so we've had redistricting. It's not very friendly to those who are pro-life. One more election cycle, and we're not really sure what it might look like here.
So you're telling me you don't have anything going on?
We like to be as quiet as possible here in Wisconsin. We'd like to keep things slow and
Yeah, quiet and nice and calm.
right, right.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that you shared all of that because obviously being in my position, I know all of those things, but I think sometimes people just have no idea what the dynamics really look like in a state. And it's easy to sort of take for granted that any Midwest, upper Midwest state is somehow conservative or that maybe a
Oh,
presidential
absolutely.
election is an anomaly.
Well, and Wisconsin has always been, we like to say like a purple state. I'm not really sure. I think Trump, did win here in this election cycle. The one before he lost, the one prior to that he won. So it's a very interesting state that we live in. And when you think you have it figured out, that's actually when you don't have it figured out. I would say this, I think what the work that we're doing too, we're doing some identifying work of voters and really where they are on this issue. So many people say that they're pro-choice, but when you have a conversation with them and ask them, where are you on rape, incest, even just life of the mother, if we have a medical emergency exception in there, it's a different conversation. So I feel that's a real opportunity for us to have conversations with those people and change where they are on this issue. And then I also think in some of our conversations too, we've said, well, how would you feel if a new abortion facility opened up in your neighborhood? So these pro-choice people, when they hear that, they're not really excited about it. So I think if we start having different conversations, and I tell people all the time, we can't change hearts and minds to favor life in the courtroom or in Madison at the state capitol, but we can do it one by one when we educate, share information, and look at what the alternatives are.
Absolutely. And you guys are doing a great job with it. So I just want to thank you and your team for all that you do and your guys' willingness to always think outside of the box and see a problem and tackle it. That's
Well,
why
thank you.
Wisconsin is experiencing the kind of wins that it is. And certainly I know grassroots people are the backbone of Wisconsin Right to Life as well. Folks who don't know how to reach you guys, Heather, let's, as we close, give them an opportunity to know how do they find out about Wisconsin Right to Life, Veritas Society, maybe that camp, how could they look at sending somebody they know? Where do they find you on social media?
Absolutely. So you can visit our website, wrtl.org, and it would be the same. Just look up Wisconsin Right to Life. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on X probably don't use that as much as we should, perhaps, but come and visit us, find out where we are, sign up for our newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter too, full of information. We'd love to have you as part of our team here in Wisconsin and start finding out what resources are available. And again, camp is coming up in July. There's still time to register, and if you have kids, grandkids, friends, come and join us.
Yeah, it is so much fun. Whether they're from Wisconsin or not, sending a kid to camp, right decision. 100%.
Yes.
I think if I remember right, one of the times I was there was somebody from like Florida who I had met who ended up sending their grandkids who I think maybe were from Wisconsin or Minnesota. But I mean, I just sort of love how like all roads ultimately led to kiddos landing there.
Absolutely. The more the merrier, and we really, the state that you're from doesn't matter. It's important to just have the tools to live that life.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule, and thank your team on behalf of me.
Absolutely, and thanks for all you do with us.
Thank you, the audience, for tuning in for this episode of Life Beyond Abortion. Please follow Heather's promptings. Check out Wisconsin Right to Life. Look at camp. Look at the Veritas Society. I know that if you have questions about how they are using technology, Heather and her team would be more than happy to have a conversation about how you can utilize it in your area. Thank you again for joining us on this episode of Life Beyond Abortion.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaohden.com or by following her on Instagram at melissaohden. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.